You ever felt anxious? I am feeling incredibly anxious. And the reason is because I have a lot to do today. But as our organization is growing, I'm having to pour into, elevate, delegate to other individuals. And then give you an example. I have a couple rock stars on my staff, one of which is a high school senior who is eager to help. He cares very much about me, and one of his goals is to become the manager at one of my stores. And so I'm investing and pouring a lot of time and resource and energy into this young man. He got a raise. I think we hired him in the beginning of December, and then he got a raise less than 2 months later. So that's highly atypical in QSR, which is quick service restaurants, for our owner to do something like that. But I had pounded the table for this young man, and he agreed. He gave him the raise, and now as I'm conceptualizing my organizational chart and having high hopes and plans for this young man, I've talked to him a little bit about that. And so the first question he asked, which is the only logical question to ask, will I get a raise when all of these things are set in place? And so I didn't know how to answer that, because I am not the one who makes that call. But then also I had to look back and explain to him, well, you did just get a raise, and you got a raise incredibly quickly. So I said what I thought might be the right thing to say, which is probably not initially, given how quickly you got your first one and how recent it was. We're not too far removed from that most recent raise. And so then I kind of felt like I was getting ignored, and I was asking him where he stood on that. And he said, oh, well, I'll have to think about it, but I guess we'll have to talk in person. And so that made me incredibly anxious, because if I were to lose this kid, that would suck. Would it be the end of the world? No, but that would suck. And so I was anxious all day yesterday because of that. And that's a problem for two reasons. One, as Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 says, be anxious about nothing. So that's liberating in the sense that if we are anxious, we know that is not from God. Just not. It's from the enemy. It's from default. It's your own self-sabotaging story that you like to affirm. And the other thing that I found rather liberating about this anxiety that I was feeling about this young man is that God reminded me, are you making him an idol? Are you making this potential asset in your company, in your organization? Are you idolizing him? Are you making him a golden calf? Are you putting your faith and trust in flesh and blood instead of the Spirit? Because the fact of the matter is, if he did leave, okay. As I've slept on it and I've woken up now, I probably would be upset about it for 5 minutes. Because if I can't change something, then, or if it's not going to affect me 5 years from now, is probably the better way of putting it. If it's not going to affect me 5 years from now, then why would I spend any more than 5 minutes being upset about it? So, he and I will talk today, and I'm sure it'll be a productive conversation. And I'm sure that when the time comes, when he's ready, when he's trained, when he's good to go as my right hand, why wouldn't I go pound the table? to our owner for this kid. It's just business. We invest in good people because good people are hard to come by. And so the other thing about anxiety is one of the best alleviations to anxiety is action. Period. Amen. Action. I've got a lot to do today. I'm just driving into one of my stores right now because we have a catering order that's got to go out. My opener here, if I know Ginny, almost said her name. If I know her, she's probably doing some inventory and getting the delivery order ready for this coming Wednesday, 48 hours from now. So I'm going to go in there, I'm going to bang out this 5-platter catering order, which is about 25 foot longs. I'll take care of the banking at this location. I'll head over to the other location, take care of the banking there, make sure that the control sheets, which consist of cash and inventory and profits and losses and sales and all of that good stuff, make sure that those are in order. And then I also have to work on the schedule for the next coming week for both stores. So I got a lot on my plate today. And so it's 7:08 a.m. right now on Monday, April 15th. I just got done editing my manuscript for about an hour, and I'm doing this so I can continue to, as Stephen Presswood talked about, I got to do something from the marketing piece. Constantly putting myself out there because, hey, I know that what I'm doing is God's work, and as Jeremiah 48:10 says, a curse on the man who is lax in doing God's work. So here I am trying to be as efficient and effective with my time. So with that, I'm just pulling up to this store now, and I'll touch base with you in a little bit. And 2 hours and 8 minutes later, got the the catering order done. 25 foot longs, veggie topping, all that good stuff. That was the first time I've actually made some sandwiches in probably close to a week. As I was making them, I was likening myself to Jeff Bezos. Not that I'm the Jeff Bezos of Subway by any stretch of the imagination, but I read somewhere in a book, I forget which book it is, that Bezos gets involved in the bigger deals, and I'm seeing myself becoming more and more like that in terms of me making subs isn't the best use of my time. I just got done doing making sure that catering order was done, banking was done, control sheets was fine. At that one store, now I'm heading over to the other store to do pretty much the same thing. But I say that to say the catering order is a large order. That was about a $330 order. So that's a big deal for us at a single store at 10 o'clock in the morning, which is when it's set to go out by. Say all that to say, if there's a $300 order as opposed to a single foot long during a lunch rush, I won't be involved in the latter, but you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be there for the former. That's a big deal, and then we need to get that thing right. And so that's why I handled that personally myself, the entire order there, while my opener could focus on getting the day started and reconciling any cash controls that needed to be done and getting the order for our delivery, which comes 2 days from now. But we had a great interaction, her and I, because I'm very do what's important versus what is urgent first. I'm more along that track, do what's important first. And so while she's getting the day started, cookies, bread, slicing meat, all that stuff, I just kept checking in on her. Like, hey, how's the delivery order? How are we doing the delivery? Because it's 9:18 right now, and it hasn't been put in yet. And whenever I would touch base, it'd just be like, hey, how's that delivery order coming? And finally, she just looked at me and she said, Hunter, you've got to trust me. Everything will be okay. I've put in orders for my truck as late as Monday evening, because technically we're supposed to have it in by Monday morning at 10 a.m. And so I like getting it done even before the store opens, so I don't have to worry about it, so I'm not interrupted during my order if a customer walks in and all of that stuff. So again, just very, I wouldn't say by the book for me, but I just try to get those bigger items done as quickly as possible, the important stuff. So, but that's a part that also was playing into my anxiety, which is sort of the theme of today's vlog, or whatever the heck we're calling this. I was getting the bank deposits ready in my office, and I'm just sitting there, I'm saying, Lord, do I need to do this order, or do I just need to trust her? And when I came out and I touched base after I got back from the bank with their change order, I just playfully mentioned it again, and that's when she made prayer hands and said, hey, you gotta trust me. And I gave her a little bit of a nod to that, saying I would, but it's also going to be a high of 70 here in West Michigan today, and it's going to be nice-ish weather the rest of the week. And nice weather, I don't know if it's like this for all quick service restaurants or food in general. Nice weather, you can bet that we are going to be jumping from pretty much every hour on the hour from noon until about 8 p.m. I'd be surprised if we didn't do at least 10 units. A unit is a sandwich, by the way, between noon and 8 p.m. I really do think that. So I said all that to say, like, hey, you're going to be busy today. We're going to be busy the rest of the week. Take the time right now to make sure that you get what we need, so we're not floundering. I'm having to run all over God's green earth between our 4 stores, trying to transfer product and make this foot-long puzzle, if you will, come together so we can serve the customer. Just take the time now. But again, the word became flesh, so to speak. God spoke through her and said, hey, you have got to trust me. And that's part of the leadership that sucks. That's the part of the leadership that sucks. In order to have more control, you need to have less control. You've got to trust your people. And so that's that. But now, as I said, I'm just going over to the Standale store, which is about a 10-minute drive away. This store, they did well yesterday, but this store, again, this isn't an active, ongoing revivification. That's a long word. I've been tasked with getting this thing back up and running. It'll be my second week on Wednesday, the 17th. It'll be 2 weeks since I've taken over. And they're getting better in terms of our sales and things like that. Now what we just have to do is we're open not 24/7. We're open 13 days a week, 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're fully staffed, we're operational, we have good customer service. But I think there's still a bit of a conditioning that we have to do with our customers to help them, remind them, let them know that, hey, we're open. Because before I took over, this store was open on a good day, 11 to 7. 11 to 7. So the customers have sort of become, for lack of a better word, conditioned to thinking that's when we're open. So you'll see it's jumping. There'll be a good 11 o'clock hour. The 11 o'clock hour at this location is usually the busiest one of the day. Do about 19, maybe 22 units in that hour. That's not crazy. A crazy hour is anything that's like 30 and above. 30 subs in an hour and above. That's a really, really busy hour. But so not so much anxiety going to this store, just having anxiety in having to let go a little bit, again, in a different way, making sure, because I have good people here. I mean, it was sort of a hostile takeover situation. I think I fired 5 people last week alone. But we've got good people here. people that care, people that want to do their jobs at a high level. Some people that don't see this as Subway, some people that see this thing as, hey, this is going to be the last job I have. The Subway is the way, and that's all there is to it. So I'm focusing much more over here on the policies and procedures. One of the things that was really disheartening about the takeover of this store is just how uncleanly it was kept. I mean, it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. If the health department came through that first day I took over, we would have been shut down. No doubt in my mind. It was just gross. There was so much product that had been expired. There might even be some product that I still have to waste out because it was just a complete abdication of responsibility on the last manager's part. And in a way, I'm so very angry about that because it's made my job in terms of getting this thing back up into a presentable condition much more difficult. But I'm also grateful at the same time, where that anxiety can be inverted almost immediately through one's perception of, well, hey, this mess is now making me hyper organized. That's not a bad thing. It's making me hyper focused on the task at hand. That's not a bad thing. It's making me work incredibly efficiently. That's not a bad thing. So the process of this revivification at this store has been, as I told my staff, one of the best personal development courses I've taken. Because the to-do list is as long as my arm and everything is important. There are priorities, but it doesn't really matter. What do I mean by that? Is being fully operational important to increase sales? Yes. Is that probably the priority? Yes. But if the health department comes in and they find something find some product that is expired, do they care about my sales and profitability? No. So everything's important, but the priorities really don't matter because there's so many different silos where things fit into that are non-competing, or maybe they are competing. I think they're non-competing. I think that's the best way to put that. But so with the Jennison store, it's the anxiety piece that's creeping in now, is just making sure that everything continues to go well now that I'm not really involved as much in the operations side of it, where I'm much more looking at the numbers and policies and procedures and things of that nature. But over here, I'm not so much involved in the day-to-day either. But it's a different type of anxiety. We have people who can make a sub, right? We have enough staff where this thing can be fully operational 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. But where I'm making sure that things need to be sound is systems, creating systems. Hey, when we get here, what needs to be prepped? We're not just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. So it's a lot of system creation and implementation. And the good thing about that is that the staff, all but one person, is entirely new, which is a good thing because you can instill a culture without there being this friction or hesitancy because of the change that might be involved with it, right? So, because it isn't really a change, it's just, hey, this is the way it is. But as I'm pulling up now, time to go alleviate some of this anxiety by taking massive action. So I will talk to you in a little bit. So just got some of the cash reconciliation done at store number 2. Now I'm heading over to the bank to make some deposits for store number 2. And then I'm probably gonna go the track because my opener at store number 1 accidentally had the oven setting on bread instead of cookies, so the cookies were cooked about 50 degrees hotter than they should be, and for 2 minutes longer, so the cookies are rather crisp. And I told her I think that might actually be a good thing, because we've had some people think that our cookies are too soft. And so I had one to test it for her. I had one raspberry cheesecake cookie. It's only 200 calories. I'm not gonna write home about it, but I think that will serve as my pre-workout. So after I do some banking here for store number 2, I think I'm gonna go to the track before I have to go back to store number 1 for the afternoon. I think that's exactly what I'm gonna do, because I do have a meet this Saturday, the 20th at Grand Valley. Again, I'm pretty sure I'll be running the 400 again. And now that just leaves what I'm going to do today. My legs are still a little bit, they're not as sore as I thought they would be. And they're not really, I wouldn't really say that they're sore. If anything, it almost had an opposite effect. I front squatted for the first time in months on Saturday. Yeah, on Saturday after I did some flying 30s. And my legs, I think, actually feel better as a result of that. And I talked a little bit about this in a Substack I wrote yesterday, the day before. It was called The Most Important Thing. And on there, I was just talking about, hey, I don't really lift to get stronger anymore. I lift to triple flex, because sprinting is a lot of triple extension. And I lift to, or front squat in particular, to recapture hip internal rotation, because as I'm running down the track, my hips externally rotate in order for me to have a propulsion forward on each and every stride. So I say all that to say that my legs actually, I think, feel a little bit restored from that squat rather than beaten down, despite having not done it in a while and despite it being a moderate to heavy load. So I say all that to say, I think it actually expedited my recovery from Saturday's workout. And so I feel good enough to go again today. And I think that's part of the, that's a good thing, because although my times aren't super fast right now, incorporating that lift seems to might be indicative of what's to come in terms of if I'm able to expedite recovery, then I can train more frequently. And if I can train more frequently, i.e. expose my CNS to higher velocities more often, well, then that's when you start to get faster, because then you adapt, right? It's not such a stressful event to the musculoskeletal system or the central nervous system each and every time you sprint, because you're adapting to it, you're recovering more quickly in between sessions. And so it's very interesting how incorporating lifting at this stage of my career does that. I don't think it's going to be a direct performance enhancer in terms of, hey, I upped my front squat by 5 pounds, that means that my first 10 meters out of the blocks is going to be a few hundredths faster. I don't think that's the case, but I do think that it's based on how I feel now. I think it is going to just help me from a longevity standpoint. And okay, great, if I can recapture hip internal rotation and triple flex, right, working on my brakes rather than my gas, restoring my hips for optimal function rather than just force production, well, that's a good thing. So that was a long-winded answer to the rationale behind squatting and why I'm going to sprint today. So, but again, back to the anxiety piece, I'm not the only one who's experiencing it today. One of my openers, probably the young man that I've tapped to be the assistant manager at store number 2. His girlfriend cheated on him, and that's obviously no fun. I've been where he's at there. But and I think I've talked about this before maybe not on a YouTube, but I think I've written about it. If I haven't, I'm going to. Here's why Subway is such an interesting undercover ministry, right? Because it's a secular business. I can't walk in there and start quoting scripture to my staff and those I serve. That would be frowned upon. But I can be a reflection of him in the workplace. Because the archetypes that are on my staff are either adults who have self-sabotaged their entire lives, so they're broken individuals, or they are babies. They're kids. They're kids, high schoolers, more often than not, some college-age kids, but mostly high schoolers who are seeking identity, and hopefully not in gender politics. Because we all know where that ends up, and it's typically no place good. So you're either working with those who are broken or babies, or sometimes broken babies. You're going to get a little mixture of the two. And so every day I'm constantly ministering in some way to those I work with. And that's really not to compare myself to Christ, because that's not my intention, but I think my intention is a fulfillment of his intention for us, because Jesus, I mean, he taught in synagogue, I think once, where he read Isaiah 61 in the synagogue in the Gospels. He did a little bit of temple teaching when he was lost from his parents, when he was just a child, but where was Jesus ministering? Where was he? Was he in a church? Was he within four walls? Or was he out in the marketplace? He was in the marketplace. And I think that's a bit of a revelatory statement, and I hope that liberates, or maybe the better word is empower, those of us who are working with people and saying, just, man, this person, well, they don't go to church. Well, they don't. I don't think they have to. I think going to church is more about a religion than than it is developing a relationship with Jesus. And if we are made in the image of him, which we are, then what's stopping you from ministering to them there and then? Doesn't matter if you are a financial advisor at Northwestern Mutual, if you're a multi-unit manager at Subway, or if you're in big box retail. Be a reflection of him. Be a reflection of him, so they can see you, right? They can see him through you, because the eyes are the lamp of the body. And over time, I think that it's only a matter of time before they ask you, why are you always like this? Right? Why are you the way that you are? Do you ever have a bad day? Or you handle adversity in such a unique way? Where can I get more of this? What are you taking? What are you smoking? Right? I remember one day I was at a workout, and this one guy asked me, because I wasn't stressing about it and I was having a pretty good day that day, and it was a tryout for a professional football team, and he was asking me, he had seen me run a 4.44 40, and he's just like, man, what are you taking? And I just looked at him and I said, I'm on Jesus Christ. You ever heard of him? So now I don't know if we need to be that explicit initially with our co-workers, but hey, if it opens the door, then walk through it, because they are knocking. They are knocking. They are asking. They are seeking. that door. Let them find what they're seeking. Because it's ultimately not about you. It's about what's inside you. They're seeing the God in you perform the works outside of you. That's John 14:10. And I think that's probably the best way, coming back to our theme here, I think that's probably the best way the best antidote for anxiety is not only action, but then buttress your action with being a reflection of Him in the marketplace, because that's where Jesus was. Yeah, that makes sense to me. That is the way. That is the way. So, I got home, and as I was getting ready to grab my bag, I realized that my bag, with my spikes, with my free lap timers, with my cones, with everything I needed to sprint, was in my wife's van. And obviously my wife is at work right now. So I had to go off the script, and that was a good thing. And I think it plays into, I know, it plays into the theme of what we've been talking about today, and that's anxiety. You gotta let go. You gotta let go and let God. We can't, because the alternative is to self-sabotage. Old Hunter, the self-sabotaging version of myself, would have gotten pissed off that my stuff wasn't readily available, and I probably either would have went to the nearest Dick's Sporting Goods and bought a brand new pair of spikes, or driven to my wife's work and demanded that I get into her van to get my stuff and then come back out here and do what I had to do. But now I see things differently. Everything happens for a reason, and the skeptics and cynics might say, well, that's just not true. Everything doesn't happen for a reason. There's a reason for everything happening. And that's just semantics to me, really. I think that it's much more the former, because God knows you, and He's going to take care of you. And I was not ready to sprint today. As I was going through my warm-up, I did just a nice and easy, I tried to do a nice and easy acceleration, and I am not feeling as good as I thought I did. Take a look at this. So yeah, that wasn't anything that you are accustomed to seeing me do, nor am I proud to put out there, nor would I ever try and compete with a run looking like that. So what did I do instead? Well, I came out here, I set the timer on my phone for 45 minutes, including warm-up, including everything in between, my breaks. I just told myself, you got 45 minutes to do whatever you want. Just go out here and do something different. So I have on football cleats today, and I did a whole bunch of agility stuff and some plyometrics, and I just played. Just came out here and had what Tony Calder would call an X Factor workout. You really don't know what you're going to do. You're just going to go out there and you're going to do athletic stuff. You don't know what exercises you're going to do, nor the order in which you're going to do them. You're just out here being childlike. And isn't that so interesting? Because if we were childlike in our faith, then we would know that God's got us. I would know that, hey, I'm not supposed to sprint today. That's why my bag is in the back of my wife's car and not mine. If we had more childlike faith and we were focused on having more fun at times in our lives, well, then we would be doing exactly as Philippians 4:6 says, not being anxious about anything, but laying our prayers at His feet in thanksgiving. I think there's something really beautiful about that. So, what a wonderful and poetic way that we get to wrap this thing up today, talking about anxiety. Be more childlike. Let go. Let God. Have some fun. He's going to take care of you. That is the way.